The world was white and endless. The frozen winds howled across the broken mountains, carrying shards of ice like knives. Snow fell without rest, burying the remains of a ship that had crashed days ago. Among the wreckage sat a young alien girl, her skin glowing faintly under the storm. Her arms clutched tightly around a small blue-furred creature, her pet. She held it close to her chest, trying to give it warmth, but her own body was trembling, her breath turning to frost in the cold air. Her silver hair was tangled with snow, her lips pale, her eyes wide but heavy with exhaustion. Every breath hurt. Her fragile robe was torn from the crash, offering little against the storm. She whispered softly to her pet, her voice weak, "Stay with me, little one, just a little longer." The creature whimpered, pressing itself against her. As if it understood, the girl looked around, but there was nothing, no fire, no shelter, only endless snow and broken metal. She had wandered from the wreck trying to find help, but the storm grew. Worse, now she sat down, too weak to move further. Her pet was shaking, its small body almost lifeless in her arms. Tears formed in her glowing eyes, freezing on her cheeks. She knew the truth. If the cold did not take her, the hunters who chased her surely would. Her mind replayed the moments before the crash, the screaming engines, the burning sky, the sound of pursuit. She had fled because they wanted her secret, a secret even she barely understood. Now it did not matter. The cold was winning, and she was ready to surrender. She closed her eyes, hugging her pet tighter, whispering one last promise. "We will sleep together. I will not let you go alone." The wind roared louder, shaking the ruins around her. Her body leaned forward, her strength fading completely. Her pet whimpered once more, but she could no longer answer. For her, the world was slipping into silence. Then came the sound. A crunch in the snow, heavy and steady. Footsteps, slow but strong. The girl's eyes fluttered open weakly. Through the blur of falling snow, she saw a shadow moving closer. At first she thought it was another hunter, come to finish what the storm had begun. Her body stiffened, though she had no strength left to run. The figure grew clearer. A tall shape clad in armor, dark against the glowing snow. His visor reflected the pale light of the storm. His movements steady, purposeful. He was human. The girl's lips parted in disbelief. Her people had spoken of humans, of their strength, their will, and their strange kindness. But she had never seen one, not here. Not in this frozen wasteland. The human knelt in front of her, his shadow covering her small form. His voice came low and steady through the storm. "You're alive," she wanted to answer, but only a faint sound escaped her lips. The human saw the creature in her arms, its blue fur trembling with life. He reached slowly, his armored hand surprisingly gentle. He touched the creature lightly, feeling its weak heartbeat. Then his eyes met hers, glowing and fragile. The human pulled off his survival cloak and wrapped it around both the girl and her pet. The fabric was warm, humming faintly with heat. She gasped softly at the sudden warmth, her body shivering harder as it fought to recover. The human's arms lifted her easily. She was light, too light, as though the storm had stolen her strength long ago. The girl's eyes closed again. But this time not from surrender, this time from relief. Her pet nestled deeper into her arms, warmed by the human's cloak. The soldier carried them both, his steps steady against the howling storm. Behind them, the wreckage of her ship sank deeper into snow, disappearing into the white world. Ahead, only more storm and frozen mountains waited. But the human did not falter. His breath was steady, his pace firm. He had seen suffering before. He had carried burdens heavier than his own life, and in this girl and her pet, he saw something worth saving. The girl stirred weakly, her glowing eyes opening just enough to see his face through the visor. She whispered in a fragile voice, broken, but clear enough for him to hear. "Why?" The soldier glanced down at her, his voice calm but strong against the storm. "Because no one should die alone in the cold." Her eyes filled with tears again, but this time they did not freeze from despair. They glimmered with something new hope. She pressed her pet tighter to her chest, her fragile body leaning into the warmth of the cloak. The storm raged on, the wind screaming as if it wanted to tear them apart. But with each step, the human carried her farther from death. His figure moved like a dark flame against the endless white, a single spark of life in a world of ice. And in that frozen wasteland, the story of a girl who had accepted her end, and the human who refused to let it happen had just begun. The storm raged like a living beast, the wind biting at the human soldier's armor as he trudged forward. He carried the alien girl in his arms, her body light, her breath shallow. Her pet was tucked between them, its small blue fur pressed against her chest. The warmth of his survival cloak wrapped around them all, humming faintly, but he knew it would not last forever in this freezing wasteland. He scanned the horizon with sharp eyes, searching for shelter. Snow whipped across the landscape, covering the jagged rocks and broken towers. Finally, he saw the dark shape of a cave in the side of a frozen cliff. It was narrow but deep enough to protect them from the storm. He pushed forward, each step heavy, until he reached its mouth inside. The air was still bitterly cold, but calmer than the outside. The soldier laid the girl gently on the ground, placing her pet beside her. Her glowing eyes opened faintly. She looked at him with confusion and fear. Her lips moved, whispering in broken words he could barely hear. Why? Help! He removed his helmet, revealing a weathered human face. His breath turned to frost in the air. His voice was calm but firm. Because you needed it. She blinked, her silver hair falling over her pale face. Her pet whimpered softly, pressing closer into her arms. The soldier moved quickly, gathering scraps of wood and frozen debris from the cave floor. With practiced hands, he sparked a fire. The flames flickered weakly at first, then grew stronger, casting orange light across the icy stone. The girl stared at it in awe, her eyes reflecting the flames as though she had never seen such warmth before. He sat across from her, removing parts of his gear to adjust the cloak tighter around her shoulders. The firelight revealed the golden specks across her skin, glowing faintly like tiny stars. He studied her carefully, wondering who she really was. A simple refugee would not carry such mystery in her body. Yet he did not ask, not yet. The girl held her pet close, letting the fire warm its fragile body. Its ears twitched, its small eyes blinking with life again. She smiled faintly, whispering something in her alien tongue. The soldier did not understand, but he could feel the gratitude in her voice. For a long while, they sat in silence. The storm outside howled like a monster clawing at the world. But inside the cave, there's only the crackle of fire and the slow return of life to her fragile body. Finally, the soldier broke the silence, his voice steady. Who is chasing you? The girl froze, her eyes widening. She shook her head quickly, her voice trembling. Danger. Always danger. They want me. Her words were broken, but he understood enough. He frowned, leaning back against the cave wall. His instincts told him she was more than a lost wanderer. The way her skin glowed faintly, the way the raiders had hunted her so desperately, it meant something dangerous. But for now, keeping her alive was the only priority. He reached into his pack, pulling out a small ration pack. He broke it in half, offering a piece to her. She hesitated, staring at it as though it were forbidden. Slowly she reached out, her hand trembling as she accepted. She took a small bite, her lips parting in surprise, as though even the bland taste of human rations was new and strange to her. Her eyes met his again, glowing faintly in the firelight. For a moment, neither spoke. But something passed between them, a fragile thread of trust. Her pet shifted, climbing into her lap. She stroked its fur gently, her voice soft as she whispered its name, though the soldier could not understand it. She looked back at him, then spoke again, her voice careful. You. Human. He nodded once. Yes. She repeated the word slowly, as if testing it on her tongue. Human. Her smile was faint but real. For the first time since the storm had begun, there was more than fear in her eyes. There was wonder. The soldier watched her carefully. His thoughts were sharp. He knew the hunters would return. They would not give up so easily. He leaned forward, adding more fuel to the fire. His voice low. "Rest, tomorrow we move." The girl's head tilted slightly, her silver hair falling across her face. She did not fully understand his words, but she understood his tone. Her glowing eyes softened. She hugged her pet tightly, leaning closer to the warmth of the fire. Slowly, her breathing calmed, and she drifted into sleep. The soldier sat awake, his eyes on the cave entrance. His weapon rested beside him, his thoughts heavy. He had fought many battles, faced many enemies, but something about this girl felt different. She was not just someone he had rescued. She carried a secret, one that could draw the attention of powers greater than raiders. The fire flickered against the stone. Snow continued to fall outside, burying the wreckage deeper into silence. Inside the cave, 3 lives now rested together, bound by chance, by kindness, and by a storm that refused to end. The soldier glanced at the sleeping girl. Her pet curled in her arms. His jaw tightened. Whatever they want from her, they won't have it, he whispered to himself. His eyes burned with quiet determination. He had already chosen his path. And as the storm raged on, the frozen world outside howling in fury, the bond inside the cave grew stronger. A bond born not of blood, not of duty, but of a human's refusal to let another life freeze to death in the dark. The fire burned low inside the cave, its orange glow flickering across the rough stone walls. Outside, the storm raged without mercy, winds howling and snow falling in thick sheets. The human soldier sat near the entrance, his weapon resting across his knees. His eyes stayed sharp, scanning the white world beyond. He knew the storm gave them cover, but it could not hide them forever. Behind him, the alien girl stirred under the survival cloak, her pet nestled against her chest, its soft blue fur rising and falling with quiet breaths. She blinked slowly, her glowing eyes adjusting to the dim light. For a moment she looked confused, as though unsure if she was alive or dreaming. Then she saw the human's back, broad and unmoving, guarding her from the cold. She pressed her face into the warmth of the cloak, hugging her pet tightly. Her lips moved as she whispered softly in her own tongue. The words were broken, but the tone carried relief, gratitude, and fear all at once. The soldier glanced back when he heard her whisper. His expression remained calm, but his eyes softened slightly. "You're awake," he said quietly. She nodded, though she barely understood his words. Her voice trembled as she tried to answer. "Who?" "Man." He gave a short nod. "Yes, human." The girl repeated the word, tasting it carefully on her lips. Her glowing eyes studied him with curiosity. He was strange, different from the cold faces of her hunters. His armor was scratched, his face worn by battles, yet his actions were gentle. She tilted her head, wondering why he had saved her. The soldier reached into his pack and pulled out another ration. He broke it in half and placed a piece into her hands. She hesitated at first, then accepted it with trembling fingers. She took a small bite, her lips parting as if even this simple food was more than she had expected. She looked at him, her expression puzzled, then whispered, "Why?" He met her gaze, his voice steady. "Because you needed it." She did not understand every word, but she felt the meaning. Her chest tightened, and she lowered her head, whispering again to her pet. For a while, they sat in silence, the fire crackling softly between them. The storm's roar outside made the cave feel small, like a fragile shelter in a merciless world. Yet inside, warmth grew slowly, not only from the fire but from something deeper. The girl's eyes drifted across the cave, to the soldier's pack, his weapon, his armor. She saw the marks of battle etched into the metal. She wondered what kind of life he carried before this, what kind of world he had come from. She wanted to ask, but the words were trapped behind the barrier of language. The soldier watched her too, noticing the faint glow that traced patterns along her skin, like constellations hidden beneath her flesh. It was not normal, not something he had seen in other species. He knew then that her hunters were not chasing her simply because she was weak. There was more to her story, something she carried that they feared. Finally he spoke, his voice low. "They're hunting you, aren't they?" The girl froze. Her pet whimpered as if sensing her fear. Slowly she nodded, her lips trembling. She whispered one word in her tongue, repeated twice. "Hunters. Hunters." Her eyes filled with tears. She clutched her pet tighter. The soldier leaned back against the wall, his expression unreadable. But his eyes sharpened. He had expected as much. But hearing it from her confirmed the danger. He knew the hunters would come again, drawn by her presence. He knew protecting her meant drawing their fury. Yet when he looked at her, fragile, glowing, clutching her pet for life, his choice remained the same. The girl shifted, pulling the cloak tighter. She looked at him again, her glowing eyes shimmering in the firelight. With a trembling hand she pointed at him, then at herself, then clasped her hands together. Her gesture was clumsy but clear. She was asking, "Are we together?" The soldier's jaw tightened. He gave a single nod. "Together," he said firmly. She repeated the word softly. "Together." Her lips curved into the faintest smile. That night the storm grew fiercer. The wind screamed as though the world itself wanted to bury them. The cave walls shook with the force of the blizzard. The fire struggled but did not die. The girl lay beside her pet, her eyes half closed, but she no longer looked ready to surrender. She had warmth. She had safety. And for the first time since the crash, she had hope. The soldier stayed awake, watching the entrance, his thoughts heavy. He knew tomorrow would not be easier. The hunters would not stop. They never did. But as he glanced back at the girl, her silver hair glowing faintly in the firelight, he felt a quiet resolve. He had carried burdens heavier than this. He could carry her too. The girl stirred in her sleep, whispering softly to her pet. Her voice was faint but clear enough to carry. Across the fire, she spoke in her tongue, but the soldier heard one word repeated again and again. A word he did understand: hope. He exhaled slowly, the cold air misting around him. He looked at the flames, then at the storm. His hand rested on his weapon. His voice was low, almost a whisper to himself. Let them come. And as the storm raged into the night, two lives that should never have crossed sat side by side, bound by fire, by kindness, and by the promise of survival. In the heart of the frozen world, something new was taking shape, a story that was only beginning. The storm began to quiet with the first light of dawn. Snow still drifted from the gray sky, but the howling winds eased into silence. The human soldier stood at the mouth of the cave, his armor coated with frost. His sharp eyes scanned the frozen horizon. He knew the silence did not mean safety. It meant danger was near, waiting behind him. The alien girl stirred under the survival cloak. Her pet nestled in her arms, its blue fur warmed by the fire. She blinked slowly, her glowing eyes adjusting to the pale light. For a moment she felt safe, but then she saw the soldier's tense stance, his hand resting firmly on his weapon. She understood enough. He expected trouble. The soldier crouched, examining the snow outside. His gloved hand brushed over faint tracks, deep impressions that cut through the drifts. Not from animals. These were heavy, armored boots. They were fresh. He muttered under his breath. "Hunters." The girl shivered, clutching her pet tighter. Her lips whispered the same word in her own tongue. "Hunters." Her glowing eyes filled with dread. She remembered the night of the crash, the chase, the fire in the skies. She knew they had not given up. They never would. The soldier returned to her side, his face calm but his voice steady. "They are close." She did not need to understand every word to feel the warning in his tone. Her body trembled, but she nodded. Her trust in him was fragile but real. He packed his gear quickly, tightening the cloak around her small frame. Then he handed her a piece of dried ration. She hesitated, but he pushed it gently into her hands. Strength, he said, pointing to the food she ate slowly, her eyes never leaving his face. She could feel his resolve, firm as stone. Suddenly, the sound of engines echoed faintly across the icy plain, a low hum that grew louder with each passing second. The girl gasped, pulling her pet close. The soldier's eyes narrowed. He moved to the cave's entrance. Raising his weapon, in the distance, black shapes appeared, cutting through the snow. Skimmers with armored raiders standing tall. The girl's heart pounded. Her lips moved quickly. In her tongue, her words broken but pleading, she looked at him, her glowing eyes wide. "They want me, not you go." But the soldier shook his head, his voice calm but unyielding. "Not leaving you." He turned back to the approaching hunters, his stance firm. His body was tired, his supplies low, but his spirit did not waver. He had already chosen his path. The hunters dismounted, their boots crunching through the snow. Dark armor gleamed under the pale light. Their masks hid their faces, but their voices carried sharp through the cold air. "Princess!" one shouted, the word clear even across languages. "You cannot run. Come with us or you die here." The girl flinched at the word. Her secret was no longer hidden. The soldier's eyes flicked toward her. His chest tightened. Now he understood more. She was not just a refugee, not just a lost girl. She was royalty, hunted because of who she was. The leader of the hunters raised a long blade glowing with energy, his voice cold. "The human will be spared if he steps aside." His words echoed like poison. The girl looked at the soldier, her lips trembling, her glowing eyes silently begging him to leave, to save himself. But the soldier stepped forward, placing himself between her and the hunters. His voice was steady, unshaken. "No." The hunters laughed, their voices sharp against the snow. They spread out, circling the cave. The girl's pet whimpered, burying itself deeper into her arms. She felt the cold grip of fear, but she also felt something else, the strange strength of the human who stood for her. The first hunter charged, his blade raised high. The soldier moved swiftly, his weapon firing a burst of energy. The blast struck true, sending the raider crashing into the snow. The others roared, rushing forward. In fury, the cave erupted in chaos. The soldier fought with precision, each shot measured, each movement sharp. He ducked behind jagged stone, returning fire. His training carried him through. His breath came heavy, but his focus did not break. The girl crouched near the fire, her body shaking. She pressed her hand to the ground, her glowing skin pulsing faintly. The snow around her shifted, rippling as if it heard her call. She gasped, straining, and sharp icicles rose from the ground, spearing toward the raiders. Two fell, their armor pierced. The others staggered back in shock. The soldier glanced at her, surprise flashing across his face. She was not helpless, not powerless. Her secret was more than her bloodline. She carried something ancient, something dangerous. He shouted to her. "Together." She met his eyes, her breath trembling, and whispered the same word. "Together." The hunters regrouped, their leader stepping forward. His blade glowed brighter, his voice filled with rage. "You cannot protect her, human. She belongs to us. Her blood will not save her." The soldier tightened his grip on his weapon, his voice calm but fierce. "Then you'll have to go through me first." The storm outside began to rise again, wind swirling as though the world itself answered the conflict. Snow whipped across the battlefield, blinding and furious, and in the heart of it stood a human and an alien princess, side by side, facing the hunters who would not stop until they were dead. The girl's glow pulsed stronger, her fear mixing with newfound courage. She whispered softly, her voice shaking but clear, "We fight." And as the hunters advanced again, blades flashing and voices roaring, the cave became a place of fire, snow, and unbreakable resolve.